channels available. Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. The meeting will be starting shortly. While we wait, let's learn more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Bi-Weekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
as the hour is 6:30. Call the Exeter Select Board meeting to order of June 5th, 2023. The first order of business this evening, if the board is inclined, it would be to go into non-public session until roughly 7 o'clock. I would entertain a motion under 91A:3, 2B and C.
So moved.
Second.
So, motion from Selectwoman Belanger, seconded by Selectwoman Cowan. Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Belanger.
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectman Chartran.
Aye.
The clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye, it's 5-0. We'll go into non-public. Okay, welcome back to the June 5th, 2023 Exeter Select Board meeting. The board just met non-public for approximately a half hour. We're ready to start our formal regular meeting, and I'll start by saying good evening to my colleagues on the board, respective town staff here with us, the public here with us, and certainly those of you at home watching us on TV. Start by introducing the board. To my right, Selectman Dan Chartrand. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
Our Vice Chair, Selectwoman Molly Cowan. Good evening.
Hi, everyone.
Clerk, Selectwoman Julie Gilman. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
And Selectwoman Nancy Belanger.
Good evening, everyone.
And we have Assistant Town Manager Melissa Roy sitting with us this evening. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Our Town Manager had an unexpected conflict and will not available this evening, so Ms. Roy will be sitting in for him. Our Recording Secretary, Joanna Bartel, will be recording via video. My name is Nico Papakostandis, and I'd like to start by inviting the public up for public comment if there is any. If there is, we ask that your comments, if they are relative to an agenda item, you wait until that agenda item comes up. Mrs. Ruffner, good evening.
Yes, I just want to thank all the people. Hi, Florence Ruffner, 5 Pine Street. I just want to thank all the people that helped, the village that helped pull off the Memorial Day Parade. I get lots of help, and I'd like to thank everyone that helped. Okay.
It was a great event. Thank you.
And we'd like to thank you for once again
Yes.
leading the way. It was a beautiful day, beautiful
Yes.
parade.
It was perfect.
Thank you for all you do. Appreciate that. Okay, proclamations. We have one proclamation this evening that the clerk will read, and this is on our Arbor Day.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This proclamation reads, Town of Exeter, New Hampshire, a proclamation in the year of our Lord, 2023. Arbor Day, June 7, 2023. It has 22 on it. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, countless other wood products. Whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now therefore I, Chair of the Board, and the Town of Exeter do hereby proclaim the 7th of June 2023 as Arbor Day in the Town of Exeter, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day by supporting efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Dated this 5th day of June 2023.
Great. Thank you very much.
And considering that town is built on timber, timber mills, and
So I will add to this that on June 7th, 2023, and we will get that revised. On June 7th, 2023, this Wednesday at Lincoln Street School at 3:15. I talked about this at the last select board meeting. The tree committee, as well as some students from Lincoln Street and DPW, Mr. Perkins is spearheading that. We'll be planting the several trees that were donated that I spoke of at the last meeting. And a copy of this will be sent to Eileen Flockhart, the tree committee chair. Kristen, I don't know if you were attending or not. I had intended to attend, however, I have a conflict. I have to be in Concord at 4 o'clock, so if there's another member of the board that would like to...
I ended up with a conflict too.
Okay.
What is the
It's
time and the place again?
Wednesday, 3:15 at Lincoln Street School.
On Arbor Day?
Yes.
You know what would be nice is to
I
get,
have it in my calendar, so I will be there.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chartrand.
what would be nice is to have a report from the tree committee about the condition of the past few years' trees. They're growing healthy and flowering and whatever.
We meet next Tuesday. Maybe we can talk about that and invite them to come in July. Okay. And I'll get back to Eileen Dan and let her know that you'll be
Yeah, I'll represent the board.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Appreciate that. We have one recognition this evening, and that is to recognize our town clerk, Andy Kohler, who fulfilled the requirements of the Master Municipal Clerk and earned the Master Municipal Clerk MMC designation. And we have an email here from the certification manager, thank you 3 times, of the International Institute of Municipal Clerks, acknowledging the receipt of the designation, and I will quote, "The MMC is more than a pin, a certificate, and 3 letters at the end of your name. It is a declaration that you are proficient in your important position and that you have demonstrated mastery of administrative skills critical to good government." So we congratulate Andy Kohler. Well done.
Here, here. Well done.
Okay. Next are the approval of our regular meeting minutes of May 22nd, 2023. I'd first ask the board if there are any amendments or revisions. And seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of the Exeter Select Board meeting of May 22nd, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Selectwoman Belanger, seconded by Selectwoman Gilman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. We do not have any appointments this evening, so we will jump right into our discussion items, and we are very honored and privileged this evening to have with us Senator Debra Altschiller to come and give us a legislative update and introduce herself. Good evening.
Evening. Hi, for the record, my name is Debra Altschiller, State Senator for District 24, representing Exeter, Stratham, Greenland, Rye, Hampton, Hampton Falls, and Northampton. And I know that you get regular updates from Representative and Select Board Member Gilman, and I'm here to update you on what's going on in the Senate as we are wrapping up our legislative session. So we are anxiously awaiting to see what legislation the governor will sign or not sign for that matter. And we are in the last throes of the budget. So we will be in session for 2 days this week. I believe the House is also in session for 1 day this week for concurrence. But so far, I can report to you where we are and what looks good. So I'm going to start with the bad news so we can build up to leading on a joyful note. Exeter is one of the communities that was used as a model in pushing forward the Housing Champions bill. So there are a couple of communities that have really embraced the Housing Champions model, and the original appropriation to launch this program for the state, and we know that Exeter was like poised to get right, yes, like ready to go, and I hope that you will still come at this with that same fervor. And however, that said, the original appropriation was, the ask was for $20 million to get the program started statewide. And unfortunately, it is looking like it's going to be somewhere in the $5 to $8 million range. So there we are.
Can I explain just a little bit what that
And
is?
please do. I do hope that we can have a conversation about all of these things,
The
yeah.
Housing Champion Program is something that the New Hampshire Housing and Finance Authority has been trying to get through the State House in various forms or in various means for a couple of years now. And what it has come down to, what this year's bill is much superior to what it's been in the past. And what it's come down to is much like our certified local government issue, where the federal government gives us money, gives the state money to distribute to those qualifying communities. And right now, I think there's over 30. This is not not federally funded money, but state money that for towns that meet criteria such as having adopted 79E, revitalization zones, anything that promotes housing, changes to our zoning ordinance, and things like that, that adopt and promote lower priced housing, affordable workforce, low income. And for having that champion name, we get to the top of the list of the infrastructure money to support the growth in housing. So, and Exeter's pretty much, I think, got everything we need.
Yes, it is my understanding that Exeter is really in a position of just waiting for that money to hit the account, so that all of the applications can be put forward. We're not starting from behind. That said, the money to go after is going to be severely reduced, so go early. Go early. Yeah, like, what can I say? Like, get there first. There's just not going to be as much to go statewide. And because Exeter has positioned itself in a place to be on the front end of this program, you're also in a unique position to be almost the pilot and to show other towns and other municipalities the process that you went through. So I would expect that you will be asked for that type of recommendation for the expertise of what you've done to put into that program. So we're holding out. There will be amendments on the floor this week. So maybe we can get a little more money into that. And so let's just dump all the bad news on the front end. Yeah, and we just do that. All right, because I hate to be like the lead balloon at the end. So unfortunately, the governor vetoed Senate Bill 79, which would have allowed for industrial host consumer generators. So right now we have a 1 megawatt cap on production of your own utility energy. And as you know, for many years, we have tried to raise that cap to 5 megawatts. This proposal was to create a municipal or government, like for schools or for a personal, an organization that was producing energy, like that they were using themselves, but they were producing anywhere between 1 and 5 megawatts. And let's say they were using 2, but they're producing 3. So what do you do with the extra 3? At this point, with the extra 1 megawatt, at this point, it would just be a lose it. And so Senate Bill 79 would have allowed for groups of school district, for instance, to get together with the police department, or 2 factories to combine together, so long as the energy that was being produced was being used by the group. Couldn't go outside of the group. So that's gone. We'll try again. Because what we know is that if we don't raise our megawatt cap, we're just not going to get anywhere with renewables. So we will continue working on that. So let's get into some good stuff. Some very, very good stuff. So the Cyanobacteria Mitigation Grant and Loan Fund is appropriated at $1 million. So that looks good. I'm feeling really good about that. And $830,000 for flood control. So that's really important right now. So just keep that in the back of your mind that their money is going to be out there. And we just talked about the housing initiatives. LCHIP. I don't know if Exeter has any programs that are coming up in the queue.
Yes.
In LCHIP. Okay, so LCHIP is budgeted for $5 million in appropriation. So we're pretty pumped about that one. And additionally, there is an additional $663,000 appropriation to the Department of State to implement an online election information portal. Oh, yeah. So we need that. We absolutely need that. And other good news, we are upping Medicaid reimbursements, and the Medicaid Granted State Advantage program is looking like we are somewhere in a compromised place. The Senate would like to just have the Granted State Advantage program go on in perpetuity, and the House is feeling like maybe 2 years would be a good idea. So I think we're landing on 7. That's where I think we're landing on. I guess that's the compromise between 2 and forever is 7. Math I don't understand, but I'll take it for now. We'll take it. Another important thing for Exeter, as we're all struggling with the housing crisis, is that there is a $10 million appropriation for funding for increasing rates at homeless shelters. And we know that our communities here use Crossroads House, and that our communities reimburse Crossroads House based, on usage by members of the town. Crossroads House asks for an appropriation of $70 a night per person, and that covers about 60% of the services that they offer. So they really need to be able to ask for more, but municipalities need that help in being able to meet that need. So there is going to be an increased appropriation, which will also help to take care of people in town. So when the welfare department puts somebody up in a hotel, or helps somebody out with food or a navigator, we will be able to support that in a better way. I was talking to the chief earlier. We are still struggling with the retirement program. More news later. That is so much in flux that I hesitate to tell you, here's what we're going to do, because I won't know until Thursday. So that is still being debated. There is no movement at this point on legalized cannabis. So we are kind of at an impasse at this point. So stay tuned. That's all I can tell you about that one. So last one is wastewater. We have a $27.9 million appropriation to fund wastewater state aid grants. I don't know if there's any more work being done. Yes?
A bit.
So there's some money, just saying. Yeah. So this is an additional $15 million from the last budget. So again, start getting organized with those applications, because that's going to happen. So there, also the PFAS
Taking
response
notes
fund.
down there? Okay.
You got that? All right.
Circled with an exclamation point.
So unfortunately, the PFAS response fund is only at $2 million right now for remediation and remediation loans. So I'm not sure what that looks like locally right now. I know Stratham has a list a mile long for remediation for private wells. So again, be ready. And yeah, so that's what I have for you. And I am happy to answer any specific questions you might have about any specific legislation. I kind of focused mostly on the municipal stuff, but I'm happy to answer any other questions. I got my nh.gov open, so bring it. Let's go.
I think Selectwoman Gilman had something.
Yes.
I did. It was on the, I'd forgotten, so never mind.
Okay.
Come back to Selectman Chartrand.
No questions, just my thanks for your being here and reporting to us.
My pleasure.
That hasn't happened in a while, as far as I know, from a state senator. So
all right then.
great to have constituent services. Thank you.
It is my pleasure, and I hope that I can get a spot on the agenda in September. That will be the time where we'll start talking about what legislation needs to be filed. And so if we're having any hiccups, or that Exeter is needing something specific, or there is a regional issue that you would like our district to put forward, that's going to be the time.
Can I make a suggestion on that? Can we do it in August? Because it's such a short period of time to write the bills.
Okay,
that
sure.
If
August
we
is
can get
good.
the ideas out there and get them better written than the ones that I see come before us.
Yes.
That would be great.
Yes, but it is, you don't have to hold something. If you had an idea,
I mean,
just
give me-
like,
yeah, I know.
You know my
I
phone
keep-
number, so.
And I did think of the other question you were talking about, helping welfare departments and
Yes.
we're talking on Thursday about SB 110, which is the relative to residency status, and it has to do with who's really a resident and getting welfare, and do we pay for people from other towns, and it's actually a well-written bill from the Senate, and the House committee, our committee, said, we don't know so much, so came without recommendation, so it might be a party-on-party thing, the same party. But this thing would help, would put into the RSAs that communities shall speak to each other about residents that they help who actually come from other communities.
Sure, and the information sharing.
Yeah.
Yep. So, yes, let's see how that shakes out, and if we don't have a positive conclusion to that, then we have an opportunity to, speak with Stratham and Brentwood and Newfields to talk about what that looks like to do something as a collective. So August is good. August is good. September is still good too. We still have time, is what I'm saying. There's time, and that should give us. It gives you a teeny bit of time, I guess, to see how the budget shakes out.
Well,
absorb the impact.
Interestingly, the House is having their budget presentation tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yes.
But-
we're all having it.
Yeah,
It's
but
for
you're
everybody.
You're not done with it yet.
Details. The presentation of where we are at this moment before the amendments start flying. Because there will be 24 hours to, say, oh, wait a minute, what happened with that? Oh, also, I'm so sorry, I forgot this. This is an important one. I received a stack of mail, handwritten letters, yay high, about 40 some odd letters from students at the Exeter Adult Education Program in many of the HiSET classes, in the students that are doing their academic classes in addition to their work over at Exeter High School, and the English as a second language learners. And then I had the opportunity to go there about 2 weeks ago, and I'll be at graduation tomorrow. They were really impactful letters, and there was something that, never thought that we had to keep an eye on this, but the money, the funding formula and the money that the state provides to support the adult education programs throughout the state, and Exeter is one of the bigger ones, like Nashua, was restructured, and the state somehow was off the hook for quite a bit of money. So they brought that to my attention and sent dozens of letters and, insisted that I come visit, and we were able to get that money back into the budget. So I'm really happy to see that, I just want you to know that the advocacy came from right inside the House, and it was excellent.
Good.
No, but Senator, I'll just add my thanks for you for being here. It's great to see you. And my question is a little bit along the lines of what you just talked about.
Yes.
What is the most helpful thing from towns? Are there things that are helpful in terms of pushing municipal issues? My fear is we're never communicating enough, and we're never communicating about the things that we should be communicating about in terms of local funding and priorities, and what is the best way to help you advocate for us?
Yeah, well, you have some great advocates in the New Hampshire Municipal Association, which is excellent. However, I wouldn't completely step out of the equation and just assume that they're doing all the work, because there's just an enormous amount of it to do. And there are some things that come through, that come across the municipal association's radar, and, they're a group of 2 or 3, depending on the day, who are doing that, advocating, and so writing the letters and showing up and giving testimony. And if there's something that's of critical importance, writing a letter from the board specifically and having me introduce it, that's incredibly impactful. I know that everybody's got a lot going on, but a trip up to Concord for a particular hearing, also really impactful, because it takes that extra effort to do that. So yeah, that's the in-person and sending me things to introduce on behalf of the town of Exeter is, it means a lot when I can go in and say, listen, just like I did with all the letters from Exeter Adult Education, to say I have, been summoned to my select board, and we only do legislative updates twice a year, but here I am, and, and they want this done. This is really important. I need to, and then I know that this is a thing that I need to keep my finger on all the way through.
Got it. That's really helpful.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to see you. Thank you for the update. Julie, we have our Housing Advisory Committee meeting Friday morning at 8:30, so if you can't make it and there's an update to the Housing Champion, would you please send it to me and so I can update them? Because the town planner comes and our economic development director comes, and they're all interested in these funds and what we can do with them.
We're right up here right now, so we're going to see, we just need to cross that finish line. So close.
Yes,
so close.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So I'll be back in August, and we'll talk about, brainstorm about what might be, some hot button issues or some things that you're very concerned about that want to be put forward. I will tell you there are some other municipalities that do join collectively with their school boards on public safety measures, so something to think about. So if there's some public safety issues that you wanted to talk about, that's another very, very effective advocacy avenue.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions I can answer?
Selectwoman Gilman had one more.
I was just going to comment to Selectwoman Cowan's question about advocacy and how we can help you with that.
Yeah.
During the shutdown, when everybody was on Zoom, we had that nice portal where you could add your commentaries, submit attached letters, or just put a subject, a few words in a message to the committee that you were talking to. And those were, depending on the legislator, read or not read. And that access is still there, but I think it's much less used than it was when we were meeting remotely. I'm going to reference tonight the Sanctuary City Bill that's coming up on Thursday. And there were 200 letters and messages for people who are against the bill, and about 50 that are for the bill. And I read every one of them, but the guy next to me didn't.
Yeah.
So it really, a message to the whole committee, which you can get on the website, looking under standing committees. A letter to the whole committee is great. If it comes from a board, even better. Lebanon's really good at doing that, and I don't know quite if they've just said, here, administrator, write a letter, you have our permission to carry out this wish, and because he gets them out like that. So we need to come up with some kind of structure for just having you sign a letter or a piece of legislation.
Okay. Ms. Roy, did you have any questions?
I don't, but thank you so much for coming.
This is my pleasure. Thank you very much. I want to just also remind everybody that everything is on YouTube, and the internet lives forever. So if you were concerned or wanted to know, like, how did that even happen? Or how did that happen? You know, depends on your inflection there. Every one of those hearings is cataloged and up on YouTube right now. So you can watch the genesis of any particular piece of legislation and see the votes on the floor of the House or the Senate. And it's all right there. Everyone's voting record is updated in real time. So you can watch these happen, because I know you all do that, watch Senate and House sessions in real time.
Nancy is watching every
Just
meeting
us?
of the
Yeah.
town.
Okay.
I watch every meeting of the town. I don't know if I could fit too many more meetings in. I do try to keep up.
The General Court has its own YouTube channel that you can subscribe
Exactly.
to.
I do get comments from people in town about having watched a hearing and wanted to know, like, well, I couldn't hear what they said, and, you know, I tell people how to look at the transcription, click the little button down on the bottom right-hand side, and you can see all the things. But yes, I'm available. Please let me know if I can be of any other assistance, and I will see you in August for legislation.
So you read my mind, because I was going to say to you, before you mentioned August and September, you always have an invite to come back, but since we've pinned that down to August or September, August, just reach out to me, and we'll pick a date and get you back.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, Senator.
Excellent. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's
All right,
good to
around
see you.
town.
Okay.
Good luck this
Bye-bye.
week.
Okay, next we have, for the next 3 agenda items, we have our Conservation and Sustainability Planner, Kristen Murphy. And I believe the first topic you're going to discuss is the single-use plastic policy.
Yep. Thank
Good evening.
you, everyone. Good evening. Kristen Murphy, the Conservation and Sustainability Planner. So when we last left this off, as you know, there was a citizens petition for the single-use plastics ordinance. That did pass, and I believe it was in April, the Sustainability Advisory Committee and myself, it was advised that we put together some sort of approach for how that will be implemented. So in your packet tonight, you have that. The genesis of this was I drafted a policy. Sorry, no, I didn't. I drafted an approach for implementation. I presented that to the Sustainability Committee and got their support for bringing it forward. And then Rustine also submitted all of this information in draft to our legal counsel, so we did get some feedback from that. I spent some time last week incorporating the comments of legal counsel into this proposal, and I believe that I've addressed everything, that was of concern. So I thought tonight what I would do is just kind of step through the different components. Most of it is really sample documents and application forms, so it's not as thick as it appears. But the proposal as it stands is basically addressing 3 areas for ordinance implementation, and that's awareness, process, and then oversight. So for awareness, and these are things that that the Sustainability Committee is committed to help me implement, should you approve this approach. So the first item is updating the town website, and in the electronic version of this, it did have a hyperlink to the website. Right now, it needs updating, but it does have sources for alternative products available there. The ordinance in its final version could be added there. And then the next item down, the next bullet is sharing the notice of ordinance adoption memo, and so your packet has a sample of that. And that would go to all town event permittees from 2018 to 2023 as tracked by the Parks and Rec. That's that same group of individuals that I initially reached out to with a survey to get some feedback when the ordinance was being developed. And then, let's see, and that will also be shared with department heads. And we have drafted, which I believe you've seen in a prior meeting, a one-pager that kind of generalizes what the ordinance does, what it doesn't do, some exemptions that are built into it. The vision would be to attach that to the memo. Publish a notice on town Facebook pages and the town website, and then develop an article for the Exeter newsletter. So those are the steps for awareness that we talked about. And it might be best if you have comments as we go along. I'm happy to entertain them that way, or if you want me to just go through it all and then we can talk further in the end, that's fine too, whatever you prefer.
I think if, I'd invite the board, if you have questions along the way, just feel free to jump in, please.
Great, okay. So then in terms of process, I proposed an amendment to the Select Board event permit application, as well as the 2 forms that the health officer sends out, one to vendor coordinators and one to event coordinators and one to individual vendors. And then essentially all permit processing would happen as it happened before. And so in your packet, if you look on those forms, I had initially just had a checkbox acknowledgement, but legal counsel advised against doing that. And so on the special event application, it was recommended that under 8 food service plan, I just added a note that says 2023 adoption of Town Ordinance 24.0 relative to the distribution of single-use plastic food service items. So there's an acknowledgement of that being a part of the thought process as they're filling out the application. And then for a similar approach for the health department, let's see, just under the title, vendor event coordinator, that first paragraph, it says, so the comment from legal counsel was, it's not appropriate to just highlight one individual ordinance because they're bound to all applicable ordinances. And so, the note in the application says, this activity is bound by the responsibilities and obligations of all town ordinances, including the 2023 adoption of Town Ordinance 24.0 relative to the distribution of single-use plastic food service items on town property in association with town permitted activities. Town ordinances are available on the town's website. And maybe that's something that could go away in the long run, but I thought that just having something to call attention to it in the early stage.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So in the email that I'm reading from the town council, he suggested just putting 24 and no point anything.
Right, and
but it says .0. Should we get rid of the .0 and just leave it as 24?
Yeah, so I did go back through the town ordinances, and the format varies a bit, so from ordinance to ordinance, but it does say I think it was the tree ordinance was the last one, 23.0. So I just followed the same format.
Okay. Well, he recommended that we just put 24 and not .0 or .2 or
Okay.
It's really up to the entire board, but I just wanted to point that out, that there's still a .0, and the attorney's recommending that not be there.
Right. I thought his recommendation was to review the format for other ordinances, and then.
I just got this tonight when we came in.
Okay.
But it does say, the way I'm reading it, is to not recommend language that says 24.00 or 24.1 or 24.05.
Okay.
Other people might read it differently, but that's how I'm reading it.
No, that's how I read it also, and it's not up to our Sustainability and Natural Resources Coordinator to go through our policies and make sure the numbering is consistent.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up because she was just talking about the application.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. So, I'm just going to put a note.
Now I threw you off, didn't I?
Say that again?
Did I throw you off?
No, I just wanted to make sure I noted that.
Oh.
Okay. And then similarly, on the vendor event coordinators application, same note. So obviously, your comment applies to that as well, Nancy.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so that's process. Are there any questions about how that would play out through this approach? And then the last item to talk about is oversight. And so it says the intention of this ordinance is to encourage plastic reduction through awareness and connection to sources for alternative products. This was the conversation that we had before the citizens petition went when we had the discussion about policy or ordinance. And so the proposed approach is prior to December 31st, 2023. That date is specific because what was voted on by the residents did have, you could use existing products through the end of December. So prior to 12/31/23, I would inform the reporting party of the allowance to use up the remaining inventory. So whoever reached out to me, I'd let them know that that entity is allowed to use up their existing inventory. But I would also contact the vendor and ensure that they were aware of the transition timeline and our sources, our available list of alternative products. After December 31st, for the first report, should I get a report after that time, I would contact the vendor to ensure they're aware of the ordinance and the alternative product resources, and seek to determine the cause for non-compliance. If the source product is the cause, I'll do my best to assist with finding alternative products and document that reporting. So if there was a second report for the same vendor, in addition to contacting them, I would issue a warning letter informing them of the second report. All second reports of non-compliance letters will be provided to the Select Board and the Health Officer and will be considered a violation of any presently held vending permits. And I do want to talk about that point in a minute. And then the last item, non-compliance among town staff will be discussed with the town manager to determine the best approach. And so it is my belief that this approach upholds the intent of the ordinance itself. But I did have something I was hoping that we could talk specifically about, and that's that very last item, the reports of non-compliance. In the correspondence from legal counsel, there were two places in that email where where he had said, and what is the best way to say this? That enforcement of this is up to the discretion of the Select Board. And though we can't go back and change the language that was approved by the voters, it really falls in your hands for how it will be approached. And so what I did was I prepared something that follows his recommendation in terms of matching the ordinance. But I did want to bring it up because there was so much discussion that this would not be a punitive approach. And so I guess I just wanted to be sure that I was in line with your vision in terms of having that be written as an enforcement mechanism. And that's the way it is. So for example, second reports of non-compliance letters would be provided to the Select Board and will be considered a violation of any presently held vending permits. That just feels very strong, but so I wanted to be sure that aligned with your vision, and I wanted to bring that to your attention before moving forward from there. It is essentially verbatim to what was adopted by.
Go ahead. If I'm correct, I'm a little weak on the history since I just came on this board, but the Select Board did not have a vision for this since it was a citizens petition. Right. And we're really relying on you interpreting sort of what the intent was. Yeah. So we're going to go with what you say as long as our legal counsel says it's okay.
So then
I don't think we ever had a vision for this. Yeah. This did not emanate from here.
Well, we had a vision of it being a policy, starting as a policy, right, and sort of working it through, because the board, if you recall, was collectively always supportive of this initiative. and I believe still remain supportive of this initiative. We had suggested starting with a policy to kind of work out some of the kinks, and I think most of the kinks were in the actual oversight. So to that point, I think that there was a vision from the board, but to Selectman Chartrand's point, before we could even do that, the citizens petition came out, and at that point, there wasn't any purpose to continue the debate. But my question, and it's not a question that you may be able to answer, or anybody, we may have to go back to Attorney Driscoll, is that I understand what the wording was in the citizens petition, which is what passed on the ballot, but if it's not legally correct, can we revise that language to make it legally correct?
Yeah, I guess I would defer to get his response.
Because if we're going to move forward with this and share the vision, of the committee and the voters, I mean, we need to make sure that we have it right.
Right. We need, if we want to be able to enforce it, we need to do it within the legal bounds of enforcement, right? So, yes.
Right.
Mr. Sharp.
And I want to be clear, I want to thank you and the Sustainability Advisory Committee for leading the way on helping us interpret what the voters adopted. So thank you for that, and I think you've done a brilliant job of getting this started.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, the reason I bring that up is as sitting through the evolution of the ordinance, because it did change over time before we started moving toward policy, it really did morph toward not being punitive and being informational. And so that's why I wanted to flag that particular item.
And I've always seen it much like when we passed the emergency ordinance for the masks. It wasn't meant to be punitive. It was meant to, number one, educate folks, but also to provide them, with a mask if they weren't wearing it.
Yeah.
And I know it's sort of different, but it's sort of similar.
Yeah.
And that's where I see here is that we're taking this great initiative, moving the town forward in a sustainable way, but rather than punish people. And we get back to, on the second violation, right? And then it comes back before the board with a recommendation from you. I mean, what do we, are we going to be asked to consider not permitting people who violate this twice? I'm not sure.
Well, and that I think gets to your point of and how much leeway do we have? Because I think as a board, we wanted to be, we weren't gonna maybe go as far as the citizens petition potentially, but we were in discussion, and then it was like, well, we're just gonna wait and see what happens. So I think these questions, which you raised in terms of not being so punitive or not being punitive, like how, is it just like, well, I guess we'll wait and see how we're feeling on that day? Or is there like a policy that we're putting in?
Well, what are the circumstances, right? I mean, there could be a organization that violates twice, and there could be a reason behind it, or it could be accidental, or you could have a violator that just said, I don't care what your ordinance is. So I really think if it does come before the board, it would have to be on a case-by-case situation, right? Because the circumstances might be different.
And so the original language that was sent to the attorney said second reports of violations would be considered in determining future event application. Let me, I don't have it in front of me, but I'll be able to see it. Second reports of non-compliance, a report of second reports of non-compliance would be provided to the select board in their consideration for future permits. That's how it was. And the concern was that strayed a little bit from the specific language of the ordinance.
That's why we ran it by legal counsel. I don't know if we're resolved on this, but I do have another question. It's for the chief who's here.
I have a question. We may have the same question.
So this involves one of your departments that you oversee, the health officer. Could you speak to your comfort level with that?
Mr. Chartrand, Eric Wilking, Fire Chief, and my position does oversee the health officer, and I think we were on public record through the whole process last fall, as we brought it through, that we would support a single-use plastic ordinance any way we could. And I think James has demonstrated that we have the ability to educate and get out and permit. So we're supportive of it. I think reading the permit, I was sitting in the back just scanning the new special event permit and temporary permit and saw how it kind of matched the old one. And all I see is the verbiage in the top discussing the ordinance. The substantive of the permit remains the same unless I'm missing something. So the way I see James doing it is in most cases 30 days in advance or 14 days in advance, whatever the permit would require, we would engage in a dialogue with either the event coordinator or the permittee, the food truck. Let's just pick on a food truck. The question I have is, and perhaps it's the same as yours, is James is doing a lot of preparatory work. He'll be out there 14 days to 30 days. We can get the flyer out. We can discuss with the vendor what our expectations are, but we won't be on the ground in the parking lot across the street during the Santa's Block Party. We will not be on the ground on Swayze Parkway if we permit a special event down there. So what happens, who is going to be and I'll quote the term, the police, when the vendor doesn't comply with what they said they were going to do on the app? And that's where you come in. After 2 attempts at correction and education, do we prohibit that food truck from participate in an extra event? Just spitballing out there. How do we manage that? It's a little bit easier if there's an event coordinator, because you can ask them to come in, you can kind of chat it through, and relay your expectation to somebody that's running the show.
So if I can put that in like a bullet, you see your function as educative but not enforcement.
Well, it's going to be hard to enforce there, and I don't want to seem like we're going to pick and choose, but we do. There are events that James modifies his schedule. We allow him to flex his schedule and leave Friday at noon because he's going to come back Saturday and literally walk the line and do inspections. And I think he was down here 2 weeks ago, or it wasn't long ago, he came in and did just that. So he looked at some vendors, he did a quick scan on that, because he has a whole list of stuff he looks for. That would be an easy pickup for him to continue the education. Geez, I see you selling, water in a single-use bottle, blah, blah, blah. But it's not everyone. The Rev Fest or the Independence Festival, the Chili Festival. So there are several larger ones where we do have a health presence the morning of, but it's not all of them. So now it's like, how do we pick and choose? What do we do? And we don't expect Kristen to be there in the morning.
Nope.
How are we going to manage that if the word comes back to you that a vendor or permittee is not following the ordinance? Then it's going to be a matter of, after the fact, kind of reaching out, trying to figure out how we're going to manage it.
How do you investigate that? Like, that's a good point. So if the health officer isn't there or member of town staff and you're contacted after the fact, and it's basically word of mouth, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
By the way, thank you, Chief, for responding to my question.
I think we'd all like to agree that people are going to step up and do the right thing. And the way I understood all of the discussion leading us to this and your desire to create a policy was a transitional period. Right. And whether it's the balance of 23 or it's going to bleed over into the early season of 24, I think in time, most people will become compliant. They'll want to continue to do business in Exeter. They see a benefit to that. We see a benefit to bringing them in. And it's just going to be that process of, what's available for alternatives, or will exempt, and again, I haven't read all your exemptions, I'm sorry. What is going to be appropriate if, something that is not sustainable will be able to be sold. We'll have to see. Right. A lot of moving parts still, and I applaud your efforts, and like I said, we're supportive of it, and we'll do everything we can.
What is clear is that the legislative body, the voters, we're very much in favor of this. And so we have to work towards implementation, whether it's the health officer or Kristen in her role or the select board in terms of enforcement. So that's clear to everyone involved, I think, that the voters said, yes, we want this. pretty overwhelmingly. It was not a close vote.
I guess in closing, my only other advice is to make sure James is in the loop, our health officer, at the sustainability. Perhaps, again, we need to adjust his schedule so he can attend some of the evening meeting of the sustainability, so that he can hear firsthand what the expectations are, and he might be able to articulate concerns he has with scheduling and things like that.
I would ask you to entertain that. I think that's a great idea.
First Tuesday of every month.
Yeah. Could I make one more suggestion on that, Chief? Would James, when he comes to talk to us, one of the things that I'd like to hear, from him is his thoughts on if it's just the beginning of an event for 2 hours to walk through it, or if it's something that somebody should be there all day to monitor, or something to that effect. Just for enforcement purposes, I don't know. I mean, is it possible that somebody could, at 2 PM, pull out or water bottles, right? Single-use water. I just would like to hear from James what his perspective might be on that.
Yeah, that just brings up to my mind that maybe in the vendor application, particularly the ones for the event coordinator application, that they provide somebody that does that. I don't know how we tell them, how we find out if they're doing it or not, but it's a suggestion.
Can we pass that on to an event coordinator, the enforcement part of it? That's something.
Well, no, I mean, under the RSA, I mean, the only people that can enforce would be the code enforcement officer, the health officer, or ultimately the select board. I mean, even the town manager and the sustainability planner are legally able to enforce.
Yeah, the only thing that people can do if they see a violation is report.
Report it.
They cannot intervene and enforce.
Right. And I think one of the permits, I saw the term on-site coordinator. So if I was going to coordinate the event and do all the permitting with you, and I would provide somebody on site to kind of be that overwatch of that. I'm not sure how that's going to work. I'm not sure how effective it will be.
Have some time to think about it a little bit and try to come back with some thoughts other than the select board taking turns going to these events. Well, I mean, if we're the enforcement, right?
No, that's not the way it's going to work.
Ms. Roy, did you have something you wanted to?
Okay, thank you.
I was just thinking, if we go back and we look at the special event application, there's many things that we ask of these applicants that there is not a town staff person there during the entire event. For example, somebody could rent out the senior center for 4 hours to have a baby shower. There's not any alcohol allowed in that building, but there isn't a staff person there for 4 hours. This is the same thing where if something gets reported, I think, in my opinion, it's creating the process of what we do. For example, Park and Rec would call whoever rented it, try to figure out, do a little bit of research and that kind of thing. But there are many things that we have ordinances for that we don't have staff people there 24/7. And we have to do a little investigating, talk with the people, that sort of thing. So I want to make sure that, James is not at every single event. Did somebody pull out a charcoal grill after James left? There's just a lot of examples that fall into this. We educate them to do the right thing, but we don't necessarily have staff there the entire time. If that wants to change, that's a discussion, but there are a lot of things that fall under this sort of structure.
Yeah, I guess my comment just a second ago, and I'm sorry if I seem dismissive, my comment just a second ago is exactly to that point. That's not typically how we've done things in the past. I don't think we're going to put the select board on the front lines monitoring events. I don't think we're going to put town staff on the front lines monitoring events. There's a trust that goes into this that's very important for how the town works. When we get a report of a violation, of course we follow up, but that doesn't mean that we're going to change the way we approach these things. That's what I was trying to say, and I wanted to articulate that a little better than just, no, we're not going to do that.
Could I do a follow-up to Melissa, please? So, do you know, have we ever really had to go to the extreme of telling someone that they've violated our ordinance so that they can't have a permit, to your knowledge? Or we've been really good about people respecting the ordinances without having to have...
There was a hot dog vendor.
Yeah, there was, yes. That was before I got here, but I do know about that. So we've had people that don't clean up. where we have to reach out to them and say, if you don't give us the cleaning fee, you won't be able to rent again. We are trying to do things in good faith, sort of like this ordinance is educating them first and going from there. And we typically find that folks will follow the parameters. But what I wanted to say is I just can't guarantee, because a lot of our events or a lot of our facility rentals do not have a staff person there the entire time.
Thank you.
And it is the structure we have right now. Yep.
Okay.
And I'm optimistic that folks are going to comply.
Yeah.
I think that's, once they're educated, they're going to comply. I just want to be real careful on the oversight part, that much like we kept stressing during the mask ordinance, just stressing to folks not to shame people, number one, or if they have an agenda against a vendor, when you get a report, it really has to be carefully investigated. And I would argue that if your investigation is not conclusive, I don't think we can issue a violation or a warning. We can remind again, right? But I think we just have to be careful on that part.
Yeah. And it would take two. I would have to get that twice before there would be anything written, right? The first one is just conversation. So, but I absolutely would. I don't want to be put in that position either.
I know.
I don't want those relationships.
I don't want you, right, exactly. So, I think we all had agreed that people are going to be responsible. We really have hope that people are going to be responsible, right? That what I was concerned about when we were talking about before the citizens petition is the language that we're going to enforce something without the mechanism to really enforce it. To me, it's toothless when we do something like that. So I just want to make sure we're, not threatening to enforce something that we really are limited on the enforcement part of it without making you you can't enforce it anyway, right? So that's what we were trying to work through before, and we're still there. So, yeah. We're all for the ordinance. It's that enforcement part of it that we have to make sure we're all clear on. The language, that's all.
Mr. Chair, may I ask something? Kristen, on your one-page flyer where it says prohibited items, could I make the suggestion? It says distribution of single-use plastic bags. Could you potentially say bags and bottles, food service products, or styrofoam containers?
Sure.
You can word it any way you want, but I think it would be good to make sure that it says bottles.
Yeah.
You might want to actually bullet that like you did under the oversight,
Yeah.
so you don't have to keep having this list of...
Same with exceptions, maybe bullets. Bullets are
And I have
always...
problems with commas.
Apparently.
I think there was a reference in the legal advice about commas.
The pause was a
Bullets are
How'd
right
that
in
go?
So for town employees,
Yeah.
obviously that would be something that if there were a repeat offender, that would come before the town manager? Is that
Looking
the
over
suggestion?
there.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, what would we replace that with? The bubbler?
So the bubbler would be fine, but the cups would need to be paper. Wax-coated paper or something along those lines.
Just out of curiosity.
So there was an exemption added to the ordinance for products that cannot be, where alternatives don't exist. And one of the things that was in my mind when I wrote that was the big plastic jugs that sit, so the downstairs cooler, for example, accepts the big jugs. It's not plumbed like this one is, but you'd need to do a whole new product in order to do that, and you can't get those giant jugs in another format. So in my mind, until we plumbed it.
Yeah, that's reusable.
True.
I know we want to get plastics out.
Yeah.
I say as I use my reusable plastic bottle.
I have mine too.
I mean, they don't get it's not.
No, they literally get reused.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, those are not like disposed of.
Okay.
Yeah.
They collect them, they clean them, they reuse them.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So circling back,
So we
what,
didn't need to exempt it.
Right.
what action, if any, were you looking for this evening?
So I feel very much like how to say that, I feel very much like I want this to be something that is a select board approved process, you know? I feel like we need something to define how that would work so that we can answer some of the questions that maybe the ordinance text itself didn't. And I hope that my memo did that. And ultimately, I'd love for it to get to a place where you feel like, yeah, this is how we intend to implement the ordinance. Whether we're there tonight or not, I defer to you, but.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Selectman.
Could we make the fixes that our attorney suggested, run it by them one more time, and then schedule it for, a hearing and an adoption?
I don't think we need a hearing.
My understanding was that we didn't need a hearing because it was approved as a citizen's petition.
There you go. So just another time.
If we could clean up again what Attorney Driscoll mentioned in his email, and then also what we've discussed tonight, if you could, maybe clean this up a little bit. And just, I just think the oversight piece is going to be a work in progress. It's not something that I think we can move tonight. It's going to be fluid.
Yeah.
So.
I have one sort of, I just questioned the detail of coordination, and it's nothing to do with what's written here. But you get a report of a violation, and you find that it's true. Somebody was using single-use plastic food distributions or styrofoam. Where does that get marked? Like this vendor, first warning.
How is it tracked?
Yeah. Thank you.
To come up with the second violation.
Yeah.
I mean, if it came to me, I would just track it in a spreadsheet. I don't know. I don't have.
Well, I think it has to be centralized. It can't be.
Whoever's approving the application should have that data.
In a column.
Yeah, they'd have to add that too.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a good point.
And that should be easy to do in the system?
Yes,
right?
I think Kristen and the Parks and Rec department can work together. If Kristen finds that she has a violation, we as if I'm still in Park and Rec, I apologize. Park and Rec is very organized, and they'll have a list of their vendors and be able to make notes to say whether or not they've had a violation. We can also talk to Park and Rec and let them know, don't forget, we really need to do this as an education piece. Kristen's already talked with Greg and Nancy. So I don't think there will be any problem communicating between the two departments.
Yeah, the only piece here, as long as the language gets all cleaned up to our attorney's satisfaction, the only piece here is just that enforcement's going to be an ongoing work of,
We'd like to use the word oversight rather than enforcement.
Yes.
But in the end, there is an enforcement piece where we may have to step in as a board. And we're going to tread lightly.
Yeah.
I sense that the board is going to feel their way into that role. And so just so that everyone's kind of understanding that that's how we're going to approach this.
Well, and particularly in the next
And I don't mean
year,
to speak
year
for
and a
the
half.
board, but that's my sense. And speaking as the rep to the Sustainability Advisory Committee, I think we're going to go slow there.
And part of this too, right, we talked about Parks and Rec working with you. I'm singling them out because they've got the snack shack and and all of that, and we're going to get through the inventory. You've got alternate products. We have to look, where we're going to, hold them because you have to buy in bulk to make it.
Right.
And we need the next year to also look at all of the fountains that have been set up and how much that's going to cost for water usage, who's going to pay for it. And so there's a lot more to this. And we are behind this, but I think we have to take small steps and make it successful.
I agree 100% with that. And that I wouldn't want it to go any other way. And I just, having heard the discussions, even with the Sustainability Committee, I feel they're approaching it the same way. I don't think anyone wants this to be a heavy-handed approach.
Wonderful.
And to keep our eye on the ball, the education piece is going to take care of a huge percentage of what the issue was.
Right.
And then there's going to be sort of, a few scofflaws maybe on the margins. But the bulk of the problem is going to be addressed. And that's always the most important thing. So, good job.
Thank you.
Can I ask one more question?
Of course.
It's just after we get this ordinance, whatever, wherever we get to this. Are you working? Dan, are you guys working on an educational piece yet, or are you just focusing on this part right now? With Exeter TV or any kind of...
So the items under awareness, SAC, my intention is SAC and I will partner on that to get that stuff prepared.
I'm looking forward to seeing.
Some of those things like the website, obviously.
Because that's going to put the positive, this is a community, the town voted for this, we're trying to do good by our planet, blah, blah, blah. So I'm looking forward to seeing the plans of that. Thank you.
I'd like to follow up on Selectwoman Belanger's comment. Is there a coordination with the school districts?
There's not. So we, even in the early stages of the ordinance, treated that as a separate entity. So
we have to take the first bite and make it work, Okay.
Everyone good?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kristen. Next.
Kristen. She did not go far.
What is the order? Next item.
Raynes Farm.
Okay. Okay, so Raynes Farm is out on Newfields Road. I'm sure you're probably familiar. We talk about it a fair amount. Right now, the way we manage, it's required to be maintained in agricultural use. That was a requirement when we accepted the property. In order to do that, we've entered into a lease with a farmer. This has happened from 2003 when we first acquired the property. In 2017, we entered into a lease with a new farmer because the former farmer had too many fields he was processing. And it's been a really great relationship. It's kind of a challenging property for a farmer because we try to manage it for grassland habitat. And so modifying mowing practices is a part of it. And so we've been really pleased with the amount of coordination and communication that we've had with the Davises. So the lease, as it's written, has a clause in it that it was valid for 5 years with the potential for renewal upon mutual agreement of both parties. I spoke to the farmer. They're still interested, thank goodness, in continuing with us. The Conservation Commission voted in support of continuing the relationship, and so I'm here tonight to ask your blessing in doing so, because you are the official entities.
And you're making the recommendation to
I am,
renew.
yes.
Okay. Are there any questions for Kristen? Okay. Then I would entertain a motion to renew the Raynes Farm lease between the town of Exeter and Littlebrook Farm dated June 19, 2017 for a term of 5 years as allowed by the current lease agreement under Section 6.
So moved.
Second.
Yeah? It's a motion by Selectwoman Belanger, seconded by Selectwoman Gilman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
And then, if I may, Kristen, real quickly, on the next discussion item, which is the Carlisle Conservation Deed, we're going to ask Kristen to present this evening, but we are not going to move on this until next week. We'll take your presentation into
So
consideration.
there's an update on that.
Oh,
I apologize,
Sorry.
about 5 minutes before we stepped in here. So Kristen will explain, but actually all of the wording in the document is there. It just got mislabeled. So there was, my concern for waiting for next week was that information was missing. In fact, no information is missing. It was mislabeled, and she'll review that with you.
so Kristen, as I said, we'll be taking action this evening.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's just the K and the above,
Yes.
you know where the
Yes.
concerns were, and it starts with A. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Okay, so before you tonight is a conservation deed for 76 acres of property off of Watson Road. This came to the town in association with a 12-lot subdivision with Scott Carlisle and Associates. The deed was presented to the Conservation Commission at their May 9th monthly meeting, and they voted unanimously to recommend acceptance following legal counsel review. There was some comments from legal counsel that were incorporated into this document. There was some clarification in the third party that's mentioned in this document, and our legal counsel has a very prescriptive approach for arbitration, and so we wanted to make sure it followed those specific steps. All of that was incorporated. What was referenced a few minutes ago is on page 3, which is use limitations. It goes from item J and then A through E, and it's just supposed to be J, K, all the way through O. So Melissa brought this up before the meeting. I went back and I compared it with the deed the Conservation Commission reviewed, and that language is identical. It was just a mislabeling of a mislettering, I guess, of the sections.
Great, thank you for that explanation. Any questions or comments from the board?
No, I just want to make sure I'm understanding it, because I came in back up on the tail end. So we're on page 3, where it says G, H, I, J, and then A starts again. That's just going to be corrected.
That will be K,
Yeah.
and then B will
Thank
be
you.
L. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, and this is all the last few things that Kristen's talked about, other than the single pack plastic. I have my notes if anybody wants me to repeat my report from that select board meeting, but I don't think you want me to, so it's available if needed.
So this is going to be amended?
Yes, just by changing the letters.
Okay.
I think it would be nice for people to actually read this to see how our conservation properties work, or some of them anyway. This one is prohibiting motorized vehicles, or I forget the word, but...
And wheeled vehicles.
Yeah.
And that was actually a point of discussion because, not to belabor this, but as you know, the east side of this property is contiguous with Oaklands. And so there was conversation about how that would work, but there's a very sensitive wetland complex in between there, and so the intent was that there's several vernal pools on this property. It really wasn't appropriate to have additional trails. The trail cannot be expanded, so it made sense to be forthcoming about what uses would be prohibited.
Any other questions?
No, do we want to, because we could vote on it, but vote on it with seeing the corrected version, with the corrected lettering? Is that possible?
So do you want to pause tonight on moving this until Monday, or do you want to?
Yeah, as long as, because I think we could do it if we vote on it, because Kristen's already presented it, she wouldn't have to come back. Is that correct?
I think we could just vote on the amended version.
I was going to take a crack at a motion. Let me if you don't like it, then
No,
we can.
I'm fine. I just wanted to see what we could do.
If it's not.
Because without seeing the actual document corrected, it's just a little, You go for it. You're good at crafting motions.
I'd entertain a motion to accept the amended Carlisle conservation deed as discussed at this evening's select board meeting, located at tax map 33 lot 26, which would convey approximately 76 acres of land to the town from the W. Scott Carlisle III. Does that work?
Yeah, I'll move that.
You would say as
amended.
At this meeting?
I said that in the beginning.
sorry.
Yeah.
I
said.
You did.
I would second that.
So the motion's from Selectwoman Belanger,
Yes.
seconded by Selectman Chartrand. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Before you run away.
Yep.
I know. We've kept you.
May I take a moment just to thank
Please.
Kristen
Yes.
for all the work she does in general, but in specifically lately with the Alewife Festival, which I always feel that poor fish's name, but a lot of work. It was her anniversary. Her husband had just come home. He came and helped her set up, and that's family loyalty, boy. But thank you.
Boy, loyalty.
Yes.
I thought I'd get through the meeting without getting a red face, but
I'm sorry. Not, the chair of the
circulation.
the chair of the planning board keeps telling me I'm the social secretary, so I have to play my role here too. So seriously, thank you.
You're welcome.
You're doing an excellent job. I am so glad you went full-time and took over the expanded role.
great. I am too.
Thank you for indulging.
I will say, related to the Alewife Festival, so I attended the State of our Estuaries conference, which they talk about all of the health indicators for Great Bay, and Exeter I was very proud to be there because Exeter was heralded, is that the right word, for removing the dam and the recovery of the fisheries, and I was really proud to be a part of this town.
Terrific. Thank you for sharing that.
It's a big deal, and we'll work on getting the word out for next year's festival if one is planned, because
Thank you.
try to get more people there. But it is something to be very proud of, and you did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Okay.
And if I could, thank you, Chief, for being here for that discussion.
Thank you.
I was reminded a short time ago that I hadn't shown my face in a while, so I figured I'd pop on in just to say anything.
We missed you, Chief. I mean, we went from every week for, what, 2.5 years?
Like a bad penny, I just showed up.
Well, thank you for sitting in with us tonight. He refers to us as is it the cool kids? Is that what you're doing with the cool kids?
Cool kids.
Anyway, Melissa, the Squamscott River Siphons project update you have on behalf of Mr. Vlasic.
Yeah.
Good news, I believe.
Yeah, so we had the memo that was here on Friday, and since Friday, we, as you see, that we've got the pilot hole. So the drill team is setting up to start the reaming process with the 12-inch reamer. The mud engineer has been, or what do we call it here, mud specialist has been really helping out, changing consistency of the lubricants and charting pressures, the whole nine, so it's been really fantastic. We do expect them to start reaming tomorrow. We did have a fluid release on Thursday late afternoon that was taken care of and reported to New Hampshire DES. So if anything comes from that or it progresses, we'll keep you in the loop. But as of right now, not a major issue. But yeah, we got through. So now we start the reaming.
Oh, wow, that is great. Thank you.
Melissa, I know you were going to mention this in the town manager's report, but I think this would be an appropriate place in the agenda. If you could just speak to where we are with the special town meeting and the petition.
Sure.
You have a couple of dates for us.
Yep.
I just think this would be more appropriate.
Sure.
Folks,
Let me just pull it
thank
up.
you.
Switching the timing on me. So the petition was filed with the court last week with the help of Mitchell Group, and the court got back to us with a summons for June 22nd at 10 a.m. At Brentwood Superior Court. It's slotted for about 30 minutes. Essentially, Laura and the town will present why we feel it's an emergency, and the judge will make their decision at that time. And we have asked Mitchell Group for Laura to be available if it is approved through the court for deliberative session. So we will have her there.
So that's June 22nd,
At 10
Brentwood
a.m.
Superior Court. Should it be approved, then again, a reminder, the deliberative session would be July 11th. And the election would be August 15th. And we did request that Laura Spector Morgan from Mitchell Group attend deliberative session. So we will have counsel in attendance.
I don't have the timeline with me, so how much time do we have for the hearing being on the 22nd? If the judge delays issuing an order, how long do we have before those dates or static?
I don't have that answer
Okay,
to me
sorry.
today.
I
I can certainly
I just
put it
thought
in
of
an
it.
email to you
Thank
guys.
you.
I have it.
So if we, we will be meeting again as a board June 26th. So at that time, if there was a delay or if these dates were compromised, we would be able to speak to that publicly on June 26th
Perfect.
and educate
Yeah, just
everybody.
trying to get a time in
Yep.
mind.
No,
Mr. Chair, can you say those dates again?
Sure. June 22nd is our court date.
Yep.
Brentwood Superior Court.
10 o'clock.
July 11th would be the deliberative session,
Okay, and that's a Tuesday when,
and that would be in the evening.
all right.
More than likely at Town Hall, we had discussed that. And August 15th would be the election. And the board would need to be present for both.
So what time on the 11th?
We haven't got that far yet,
Probably like
but it would like 6 to 8, 7 to, yeah, evening.
An evening election?
No, all day.
Oh, okay, that's.
No,
what I
yeah,
thought.
that would still be
I was
7 to 8.
Got it, okay. I was just putting it all day, and then you said evening, and I was,
No, the 11th would
Yeah.
be the evening, the 15th block all day.
got it.
Yeah, I
On
think
it.
we did consider, probably on the deliberative session, trying to do it at 7 and not 6, though, just to give people a chance to,
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
get there
well,
as we get
just wanted to
closer.
remind you.
And then lastly, Melissa, we have a recommendation from Jay Perkins to award contract for the Linden Street Bridge Engineering and Design. Do you want to speak to this?
Sure.
quickly?
So as part of warrant Article 15, in this past warrant, we had Linden Street rehabilitation over Exeter River for $295,000. This bridge is an existing timber bridge, which was constructed in 1993. The abutments and the wing walls are showing signs of settlement and bulging. The preferred fix is to install soil nail tiebacks and cast-in-place concrete face to the abutment. The bridge guardrails will be updated to AASHTO, crash-worthy bridge rails. Let's see what else. The Wright Pierce is on our approved DPW consultant list for infrastructure projects. And Jason Gallant, PA, has worked on several past bridge projects while part of CMA as well. And we expect that design work will progress for bidding in late summer with potential construction this year, depending on contractors and such. So there's no concerns from the town manager's office. It would be recommended.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? None. I would entertain a motion to award the Linden Street Bridge Engineering and Design contract to Wright Pierce in the amount of $67,000 and further authorize the town manager or their designee to sign all necessary documents.
So moved.
Second.
It's a motion by Selectwoman Belanger, seconded by Selectwoman Gilman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes 5-0. That concludes our discussion items. Madam Clerk, I think we have one.
Yes.
So it's for you.
Yep. Mr. Chair, I move to approve a veteran's credit in the amount for map 68, lot 6, unit 412, in the amount of $2,000 for the tax year 2023. This also includes a disabled exemption.
Second.
Motion by Selectwoman Gilman, seconded by Selectwoman Belanger. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Madam Clerk. We do not have any permits and approvals this evening, so Ms. Roy, I'll hand it back over to you for the town manager's report, please.
Sure. It was a short week last week, but Russ held our monthly department head meeting. Russ, Corey, and I continue to work on the reclassification study for SEIU members and non-union employees. Russ and Corey are working diligently with the bond bank on the solar array project. We worked with Laura, as we talked about, for the court petition. We have a group of staff that is working on possible changes or amendments to the 79E process, and they will present those when that's finalized. Town hall chairs have been ordered, and we expect them in the next week or two.
Great.
The town of Brentwood is requesting preambulations, so we will be needing a representative from the select board to commit to that at some point. So if you guys can let us know who might be able to, and if you have some date or time that might be available.
I should do that because I'm the one that keeps passing the law that we have to continue to do it.
Wasn't there a question resignation from the last time you went on one, if it actually has to be a select board?
There was clarification on that.
Oh, there was, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Melissa, I'm happy to, if you want to, and I'm going to speak to this when it comes to my select board committee. I did the one in Kensington. I'm happy to do Brentwood, but I'll need to get some dates.
Okay.
And it would need to be further in June.
Sure.
Mr. Chair, if you ever need someone to sub in for you, I'd be happy to do it as well.
Great, thank you. We'll get those together. I wanted to just let the board know that we received an email from Susan, and I am so sorry that I don't know how to say her last name, Fichera. Wanted to make sure that the board knew how wonderful Kristen Murphy had done at a 90-minute event at the McDonnell Conservation Site. I'm going to read it to you because she's actually related. So this event and land is meaningful to me because it belonged to my family. John Donnell was my dad. Although I have joined this event in the past, Kristen's approach, knowledgeable, kind, purposeful, and connecting this smaller experience with the larger environmental world concerned was outstanding. So I always like to make sure you guys hear those types of things.
Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Yeah.
DPW was working diligently last week to get all the SRF pre-applications in, which were due last Friday. We found out after our last meeting, Exeter is officially now part of the AARP Age-Friendly Network, so
Wonderful.
Thank you for your letter of support. That helps us with all kinds of grants and resources, so that's exciting. We found out today that the Municipal Managers Association of New Hampshire awarded me a scholarship to attend their annual conference at the end of June. And what else? We expect hopefully that the Communications Committee will be joining us potentially on June 26th to give you guys a presentation on a whole bunch of things they've been working
Great.
on.
Terrific. Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Roy?
No.
Okay. Select Board Committee reports. Selectwoman Belanger.
May 25th, I attended the planning board meeting. There was only one public hearing scheduled, and it was a small subdivision, a 5-acre subdivision off of a 21-plus acre lot on Powder Mill Road, and that was approved. We were going to have our third presentation from the town planner, but he wasn't feeling well. So he came just to be there for the applicant and then left. But I do want to remind everyone that those are happening, and I hope people are taking some time to watch them because they're really informative. I have a planning board meeting on Thursday night. There are a few applications on there. I did on June 1st attend the Communications Advisory Committee on behalf of Molly. I filled in for Molly that night, just to give people some background, because they are going to be looking for some things from us, some insight. So Martha, the chair, Martha McEntee, could not attend next Monday, so that's why they asked to push it out. So they're going to present their plan, but they're going to be looking for next steps from us, and hopefully for us to give them to them that night, or at least some insight on next steps. So I did ask, because one of the things that they were looking to possibly do is a draft communication plan. So I did ask about how long they could get one ready, if it would be the fall. Chris Zigmont felt that he could at least get a draft done within a week or so. So they're not really worried about a delay in drafting it. in getting it to the select board so much as making sure, especially with the summer and people taking time off, that they had some instruction on where to go with this from this point forward. So we had some conversations about the budget process and just trying to, the report has some budget items in there, and I explained that it's for training and things like that. So the town manager's who puts the budget together and will decide if that's appropriate. He'll decide what line item, and then the budget recommendation committee will vet those, and then it will come to us, and then deliberative session, and then the voters. So, yes, and just items of how to print flyers. One of the things, could you check into this if you don't know the answer? So one of the items, and sorry to get into the nitty gritty, but it's kind of important on the financial part of this. Copiers. I understood that our copiers, every department head uses a code. Okay, because somebody said that's not happening anymore, so it is still happening.
It's happening as far as I know.
Because they were talking about flyers and who would be responsible for printing the flyers, and if, it would be, so I said it would be more cost effective to find out how much it would cost us to print them per page and then see what an outside vendor costs, but anyway, I just meant to give you a heads up on that one.
Yeah.
There's a message board in front of the town hall that was brought up. Apparently there's been modification to it, and apparently it now requires a step ladder to,
I don't know that that's true, but it was enlarged.
It was enlarged by about 4 feet and now requires a step ladder to change the content. So I don't know what the reasoning behind that is, but we might want to. The other thing, so remember a couple of meetings back, I forgot the organization, but they asked to put signs in Gale Park. Okay. And so that actual message board was brought up. And it was said that somebody can reserve the message board, and if nobody else is in the queue, their flyer will just stay in there indefinitely until someone requests it. So one of the things that we talked about to consider is when that person's time is up and there's no one in the queue, we take the message out and use that bulletin board for something going on with the town. That was something we want to promote for the town. So I just wanted to give you a heads up, that might be something to consider. And then the only thing when we see the report, the one thing I'm gonna ask is that I was asked for feedback as the backup, and I gave it before. They felt that they shouldn't, or wasn't in their purview to talk to other department heads for thoughts and things like that, which is fine. But at some point, I would like the department heads to give some feedback on the report that we get. I'm talking 1 of 5 here, but I just wanted to throw that thought out there. And I have a Housing Advisory Committee meeting Friday morning.
Terrific, thank you. Selectwoman Gilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had no actual organized committee meetings, but I did have two walkthroughs, and Ms. Roy can tell you how kind of fascinating they've been through the town hall, so we can get rolling on the actual master planning of what we want to do. The first trip was through with our consultant from Arco Architects and their all-female team was kind of interesting to see. Took a tour bottom to top, all the spaces. Every time I've gone through there, I've seen a different level of electrical conduit in places I didn't notice it before, different ages of the style of electrical use. These are the kind of things that really need to be looked at before we start saying put that over there and put that over there, because some of them are running alongside each other, so maybe we can just house it all in one runner, one cable. And then, so that was our consultant, and then this morning we went through with the State Historic Preservation Officer and his deputy for their recommendations, I guess, or at least to see where we are in the process and understand that we want to do this and do it right, and we're looking for recommendations from them of what the next step might be. And I think we all agreed that I'm sorry that I misinterpreted what our consultant is doing. They're actually doing a conditions assessment, not a historic building survey. So they're looking at the historic, the place, like I'm talking about the electrical conduits, are they in a place that obscures something that is a resource? They're not actually going through and saying, we must preserve that, we must preserve that, we must preserve this. That's a second level thing that we can get into. But on that topic, because that's what we're doing right now, I can send back the grant application to the Preservation Alliance to pay for this first piece of work. Okay. And we'll get a letter from the SHPO, they're called, to back us up on that. That we're only doing this little piece that we want the $4,900 for or something. So that's very encouraging. They're very excited to see the town and the town hall and its place in our society and its effectiveness on how we want the town to be active and enjoyable. And the historical preservation and economic growth go together, and this is a prime example of how that happens. And then I'd just like to catch you up on a couple of things that are going to be happening on Thursday at the State House. Municipal and County has two bills. The first one, Senator Altschiller already talked about, is relative to the residency status of transient or homeless people. There currently isn't language for people that are hospitalized or in a correctional facility or in some kind of long-term care that are released, but have been living in Brentwood for the most part for 2 years or whatever, but they haven't lost their residency in the town they originally came from. And so it's making that clear. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that towns do offer help to non-residents in an emergency situation, mm-hmm. but first ask them to go back to their town of origin. And then, excuse me, it's really just tightening up how towns interact with each other and their welfare assistance, because we do get cases of somebody that's transient, stuck in a snowstorm, can't go somewhere, but they're from Somersworth and they're traveling, through Exeter, put me up. Mm-hmm. And so now we shall talk to Somersworth about this person and pay us for what we did for them. Okay. So that's good. Then the other one that's going to take a lot of debate, I'm sure, is the prohibiting cities and towns from adopting sanctuary policies. I'm not going to give you my opinion, but what it does is basically make municipalities adhere to federal law as far as immigration status and investigation goes.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
Okay, fair enough.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to tell Molly one more thing. Your next meeting is July 6th. At 7 o'clock, they change the start time from 6:30 to 7. So kind of an important thing that you might want to know. Thank you.
Thank you. And you also.
Yeah, I'm set.
Thank you for that update. Appreciate that. Selectwoman Cowan.
I don't have anything. I was out of town, and Nancy, Selectwoman Belanger, did an excellent job of updating you.
Thank you.
Selectman Chartrand.
No report from me, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I did not have any committee reports. However, I did attend the perambulation in Kensington on May 23rd. In attendance from Exeter, along with me, Mr. Dean, Ms. Roy, Mr. Perkins, and from Kensington, their chair, Select Board Chair Joe Pace, and their town administrator. And I will say that that was the first perambulation I've ever participated in, and I would suggest that late fall, early winter is a more ideal time to try to search for things on the ground or in the sky or in the...
Yeah.
Did you all have your machetes?
We encountered much foliage, but more so there were a lot of ticks. Mm. Yeah. And I would just say that colder weather with less
Endangerment.
foliage would be a lot easier, but we successfully completed our task within the finite timeline that Kensington gave us.
Can I ask you, as a legislator, if the perambulation worked for you, I guess? And this is the reason I'm asking. Several years in a row, there have been proposed bills to get rid of the perambulation requirement because you can do everything on GIS or maps or have a drone go out, although I don't know that the drone can see the little granite post that says E on one side and K on the other side.
Well, I will tell you that not every marker still had an E and a K. So,
but there was a marker.
But there was a marker.
Yeah. So
I don't know. I mean, I think there's got to be a better way. I mean, there were some that were very visible from the road, even. So a drone or something like that. But I don't know.
I just want to
keep brainstorming, but for now we'll go through the mud.
Because we've been. I've always argued that we keep it because it's sort of like our on our annual ballot, the measure of wood and bark or whatever, the fence viewer. These are things that are traditional, and we have them on the ballot. So let's keep a little bit of New Hampshire traditional. So,
It was a nice morning to be out there. Okay, correspondence. At the American Independence Museum on Monday, June 19th from 5 to 5:30, there will be a memorial step dedication in the name of Private Jude Hall. There's a letter from Xfinity that updates some channel changes for those that are interested. And then finally, the legislative update from the NHMA for our review. Board calendar, I'd like to try for scheduling purposes, try to get halfway through the summer, we can get some dates on the calendar. We know we're meeting again next week, June 12th, for hopefully a brief meeting. June 26th. And then July, if we stay on schedule, it would be July 10th and July 24th. And I'll pause to see if there are any conflicts.
I already have them on here.
You're going to have to say those dates again.
7/10, 7/24.
7/10, 7/24?
7/10. All right, that's the day before deliberative session.
Correct.
All right, select board meeting, 7/24. I might be on vacation.
I'm actually going to be on vacation that week too, but I'm going to...
Yeah, I'm on vacation the 10th, but I'll be here. The whole week is already filling up, so. Oh, my God, it's like, yeah, 10, 11.
I think, if we were just around, I would come, but I think we're going to be gone.
Well, let's.
Dan and I can be a quorum.
Well, no, I'm going to be. I'm going to come. I mean, that's.
Okay.
We're taking that week off, but I'll still be here.
Okay.
So, okay. Let's plan on that, and then.
I'll be here.
So 6/12, 6/26, 7/10, 7/24, deliberative session 7/11. The election is 8/15, and then we can look at August dates as we get closer to the end of June.
Good.
Okay, anything else from the board?
Mr. Chair, I move to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? We're adjourned. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite